Welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on 1220 AM and 98.1 FM because my engineer has a little button and he likes to use that "and" sound.
I do.
Everyone finds it ignoring, but my engineer likes to put that "and" in there.
Yes,
anyway,
I do.
We are live with the Ask Brien radio show. And how do you spell Brien?
B-R-I-E-N.
And what does the E stand for?
It stands for engineer, empathy, excellence, and am I forgetting one more? I think I'm forgetting one more, bro.
How about
Brien?
experts?
Experts too, yes, sir.
So for those of you who have never listened to the Ask Brien radio show, we are going to have a special episode this week based on the coronavirus and all the problems that we're having. But for those of you who have never listened to the Ask Brien radio show, we wanted to go over a couple of things with you first. So the Ask Brien radio show, and Ask Brien is spelled A-S-K-B-R-I-E-N, and it's AskBrien.com. Ask Brien Radio is part of the Ask Brien website, and the Ask Brien website is a website that was created for business people who have business problems, and we try to solve the business problems. So on the Ask Brien site, we have a business community. The business community is made of local people in the same industry. So somebody that owns a clothing store in Alabama and a clothing store in Alaska, the fact of the matter is that since they're in the same business, same industry, they may have had to deal with the same issue. So one business owner to another business owner, helping that business owner solve a business problem. Then we have experts. Experts are based on subject matters, and they go all the way from accountants, ACC, to web developers, and anything A to Z, we have experts for. Now, experts are vetted, so you have to qualify to become an expert on the Ask Brien website. One way you can do that is typically if you have 10,000 hours of work in the same area, we typically will allow you to become an expert, but there's no guarantee. We vet everybody. There's also certain circumstances where somebody may have 100 hours, but he's Mark Zuckerberg and he's got a web development stuff. We might allow him in, not based on notoriety, but based on the fact that he just has a great skill for a certain subject area, whether or not he has the 10,000 hours or not. The reason why we use the 10,000 hour requirement is if you work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, that's 2,000 hours times 5 years. After 5 years of working full-time, you typically have enough knowledge if you're working in one area so that you pretty much can be vetted to become an expert. But there is no guarantee. We have a committee, and we make a decision each week to determine who shall become an expert of those who have applied. We've been doing this for about 3 years now. The Ask Brien radio show first started, I believe, first episode was in January of 2017, and our pilot was in December of 2016. Each expert also is allowed to have their own profile page where they can post webinars, ebooks, videos, etc. about themselves, and have allowed them to place their own webinars on our national calendar. Now today, as I said, this has never happened in our history, nor has it happened in our history in America. But right now, we are dedicating the entire show to the coronavirus and the coronavirus questions and issues that can come up and face business owners. Now, while I am an attorney, nothing provided herein is legal advice. These are business answers to business questions, although there may be some legal overlap here. I don't want anyone to consider this to be legal advice. You need to contact an attorney if this is legal. Now, all week we've been contacting people, and they've been asking us questions. So we're going to use a different format this week. We don't have a co-host this week. Mr. Alex Grossman is not available, and Miss Lindsay Mann is not around either. So it's just me, pal. Me and Mr. Engineer Patty.
That is me, sir. Yes, sir.
And so I imagine, Patty, on March 17th you were drinking, right?
For St. Patty's Day. How did you know?
But, okay, folks, I am going to be a lot more serious this show, and so we're going to try to get a lot of information out. And if somebody really does have a question, they can go to Facebook and post the question, and we might be able to answer it, hopefully. If you go to the KHTS website, and you go to, that's the hometownstation.com, go to the Ask Brien, you'll see us on video, you can ask a question there, and we'll try to get to that, especially if we run out of questions or if it's an important question, we'll try to get to it. So the first question we had came in this week was, hold on, what happens if I can't pay my mortgage and my bank won't cooperate? Well, that is a very, very big problem. Now, let's go through this analysis here. If you can't pay your mortgage based on the fact that you either lost your job or you have a lower income or no income based on the coronavirus, there's a couple of issues here, one of which is the federal government. The federal government and our president has put on a provision there that you cannot have any foreclosures or evictions, okay? But those are relating to specifically, I believe, to the FHA and federal government programs. So I think the first issue on whether or not what happens if you can't pay your mortgage is, right now, if you have an FHA loan or a government-type loan, I think you most likely will be covered, but that doesn't mean that you may not still be responsible for some interest or additional fees. That I'm not positive of, and we can find that out for you later on, but I'm not sure about the answer to that. But I do know there is a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, so nobody could get to that process. Now, the real issue is that is a government directive, and obviously it's the United States, as it was passed, an executive order by Donald Trump. However, it does not specifically apply to individual private banks, I believe. Now, I'm not sure because I haven't read the directive, but when he says FHA, he's referring to the Federal Home Loan Association and not referring to other things. I don't believe that the government itself has the power or authority to make a bank, force a bank to do that. So I think that if it's a government mortgage, I think you can get a delay. And my understanding of this delay is not only would you get a delay, but they cannot report you to the credit bureaus. That was what I had read and listened to about these mortgages. So if you're in that situation, that is what we call the golden sweet spot, and you probably will be okay. However, this is American law, and most of these mortgages are going to be based on a private lender. So, for instance, you may have what's called a hard money loan or a private lender or even a bank that has made a loan to you for this mortgage. In those circumstances, if you cannot pay it, it's going to be based on a contractual relationship. What that means is because it's based on a contractual relationship, it is between you and the lender who has ever made that loan agreement with you. And that loan agreement, they may have, there are certain provisions called force majeure, M-A-J-E-U-E-R, and that is a clause that basically says acts of God, hurricanes, etc., that you may be able to loosen the provisions. So that is one way that you might be able to deal with it. And you might be able to say, well, the contract has a force majeure. It was unexpected. Nobody anticipated this virus becoming to this level and causing all this problems. You didn't expect to lose your job, et cetera, and so there might be a golden lining there, although I think that's less likely than, and not as good as the government saying there is a moratorium. Lastly, or not lastly, but one of the better options, and what I believe that many banks will end up doing, but it's up to the bank and up to the lender specifically, is the lender hopefully will be able to work out an arrangement whereby they'll say, could be Wells Fargo, I don't know if any bank has this policy, they may say, listen, you don't have an FHA loan, but due to the coronavirus, we're going to relax our standards, and this is what we're going to do for you. But it is up to each individual lender to make that decision. The government, technically can't, is not a party to the contract. The governmental agency, the FHA, etc., and guarantors, and maybe even the Veterans Association, the fact of the matter is those type of loans, you might be able to make out an arrangement with them because the government has issued this order. But that's the government issuing the order, and the government controls that. The government can handle and supervise and make directives as to things that they control and are under their direction. As the private citizens, which is technically a bank or technically another lender, whether or not they're going to allow you to not make the mortgage payment or not is up to that specific lender, and you're going to have to get the lender to do that. If not, your last provision may be to go based on this force majeure clause. Force majeure clause saying unexpected event, therefore releasing you from having to make the commitment to make that payment. Obviously, if you have the money, you should be making the payments, even if the government has this moratorium on you. Why? Well, it's going to be beneficial to the economy as a whole. And you have to understand that. It's also going to be a situation where I don't believe that they're going to say, okay, you don't have to pay your principal back. What it's going to be is you're going to have a time period to pay that principal, during which time there's a potential for interest, or they may take that amount that you can't make that mortgage payment and put it on the end of the loan. Now I don't know that these are facts, but I've read about this, and that's what the FHA may be doing. It's not that you're going to, okay, I don't need to make my payment and I'm free. It's if you have some type of hardship, then the government is going to step in and help you out, and they're either going to let you get 6 months to pay it back or pay it out at the end of the loan. But if it's paid at the end of the loan, it may increase the total amount of loan that you have. It's just allowing you a kind of a deferment forbearance for a certain period of time. So now the other way, and this is a much bigger concept that we're going to talk about and discuss in a little while, is, again, if you can't make your mortgage, there's a couple of rules that you should know. Mostly in the state of California, we're applying mostly California law and not other states. Basically, if you have to miss 3 months of mortgage payments, if you miss 3 months of mortgage payments, then they can file what's called a notice of default. So they can file a notice of default if you miss payments for 90 days, and that is recorded at the county recorder's office. Then, after that's recorded, if you miss payments for an additional 90 days, then the lender is legally allowed to do a notice of trustee sale. Now, that's on the California law. Obviously, if you have an FHA loan and the government has put a moratorium on foreclosures, you are probably fine. But if you don't have a government loan and it's with a private lender, these rules still may apply, and you still have to be aware of these and still be careful about them. The 90 days of not reporting to the credit bureaus is also very important, because a lot of people, it is unforeseen that this event would have occurred, and the fact that you will have this time frame to do that is certainly beneficial. Lastly, and I hate to go down this path, and we'll go discuss it at the end of our show, but if you really can't make your mortgage payment, if you don't make it for a few months, they're not going to be able to foreclose on your house. It will eventually affect your credit, whether or not you have a lender or not, depending on what the government does. But if with a private lender, you still could have a situation where you still could lose your house. However, you can file what's called a Chapter 13 bankruptcy at any time. So you could probably stay in your house. If you're current with your mortgage, you could probably stay in your house for a good 6 months before you would have to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And in a bankruptcy, you pay back that past due amount over the next 3 to 5 years. So you could, for instance, if your mortgage is $3,000 a month and you didn't make your mortgage payment for 6 months, and you had a private loan, and the government was not an FHA loan, and the government was not part of this loan, and you were stuck in a position where you couldn't make the mortgage payment for 6 months. Let's say coronavirus stretches out through August. You could then file a Chapter 13, and then you would, as long as you make your current mortgage payment the following month and pay back that debt over the next 3 to 5 years, depending on agreement of the judge, you will have 3 to 5 years. That's 36 months, but it can be, in certain circumstances, go as long as 60 months to pay that money back. You certainly can use that feature. We don't want to discuss the bankruptcy issue now. We're going to discuss that at the end of the show. That is the answer to the first question. Patty, do you have any questions on that?
You know what, Peter? I actually do have a certain question I'd like to ask.
Relating to the answer that I gave regarding what happens if I can't pay my mortgage and my bank won't cooperate.
It may not be mortgage, but I do have something that's regarded to like workplaces, though.
Okay, why don't you ask that question?
Okay, it's
putting me on the spot.
I will put you on the spot.
Dumb. Don't you have that button?
Dun,
dun,
dun.
Dumb. You have to have one of those.
Well, here's my question. Can I legally restrict visitors to the workplace amid these coronavirus concerns?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not specifically certain to the answer, but I will say this. If your business is open to the public, okay, you are supposed to allow anyone into your premises. I would think, though, you probably could restrict people if they knowingly had the coronavirus. That's one possibility. And also, there was a case, as you recall, I believe it happened a few years ago, where two men were getting married and they wanted to have a gay wedding, and the baker refused, under a religious basis, to allow them to bake the cake for them. And so, specifically, they were not allowing them to order a product from the company, and that was upheld to be valid under religious grounds. Now, what we're talking about here is slightly different, but it is related. The issue is whether or not you're obligated to do business with people. But I would tend to think that under most laws, and as currently done right now, unless the person definitely knew he had coronavirus and told you he had coronavirus, I don't think you can prevent people from coming into your shop. Now, what you can do, though, is if you have, you could prevent, I believe, under the regulations, they're saying not a gathering of more than 10 people. So if you have a store and you have 10 people in the store, I certainly think they can make restrictions relating to that. In fact, my recollection is that the Best Buy company has done something similar to that, and that is they are now allowing you into the store, but they're limiting the amount for the social distancing concept, whereby we don't want anyone to be within 6 feet of another person. And I believe what Best Buy is doing is they're allowing people into the store, being escorted by a person that works there, and making sure that they're not close enough to another person to violate the current regulation of social distancing, that you should be 6 feet apart from somebody, and you shouldn't have gatherings of more than 10 people. And that is actually not everywhere. That is in Los Angeles, and obviously in San Francisco, and the 6 counties that have enacted the shelter down rule. It is not across the rest of the state of California, but it certainly is also a regulation of Governor Newsom, which I believe has a restriction, I believe, of 50 people. And so certainly, depending on the store, there may be more than 50. I mean, look at Costco. I'm sure there's more than 50 people in the store. Certainly, that's an interesting concept that they may have to deal with at some point. Did I answer your question, or do you have more on that?
You did it. You did answer that question pretty well. I
was trying not to, but okay. Sometimes I answer the question.
I mean, I do have another question. It's also, Peter, can I take the temperatures of my workers or order them to get tested for the virus?
Again, by the way, all these questions that you're asking and that people have, this has never happened in our history.
Right.
So there really isn't any laws on these areas. I believe that you probably can take the temperature of somebody. Of course, the question then becomes, what happens if somebody were to go to work and they refuse to take this temperature test? And that's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
That would be a little bit more complicated. Because they're agreeing voluntarily and consenting to you take it, that's a non-issue, right? But when you have the person that says, no, I don't want it, I think under these circumstances, and it would be a very difficult situation, I would not advise anyone to do that, but I think for the public good, I think you could tell the person, well, if you're not willing to have your temperature taken, and this is, could be a lawsuit happening, but I would tell the person, no, you can't come in if you don't do that, because, we're concerned about spreading the coronavirus to other people, and we don't want that, so we want to do it. So I definitely think an argument could be made. I don't know if you'd prevail, but I definitely think an argument could be made, hey, listen, we don't want sick people coming in. In fact, there is a regulation, by the way, that was passed that said sick people should not be coming to work. So I believe that you probably could exclude that person. Now, my understanding is we're going to be taking a break now?
Yeah. In fact, we should be taking a break right now, yeah.
So we'll be right back.
All right.
Tucked away in the east side of our valley is the most delicious steakhouse. Steaks cooked to perfection using premium beef. Beef only found in the finest restaurants. Bergey's is the place. Steaks, burgers, and so much more. Restaurants come and go in our valley. Bergey's is different. They've been around since 1990, serving steaks, fish, and entertaining the neighborhood locals. Fantastic food, fun, and friends. You'll find them at Bergey's on Sand Canyon, right at the 14 next to the mobile station. Bergey's, it's worth crossing our valley.
Luna, the newest neighborhood at Skyline in Santa Clarita, welcomes you to schedule your private tour today. Luna by Party Homes features beautiful open designs with fun community amenities built right in. Schedule your appointment to see our 3 new models from the low 600s and experience Luna for yourself. Call 661-387-2122 or visit partyhomes.com/Luna at Skyline to schedule your personal tour of Luna today.
Why did Mercedes-Benz of Valencia win the Dealer of Excellence Award in 2019?
Because we strive to provide the most outstanding sales experience.
Mercedes-Benz of Valencia COO Chris Paz.
We know you have high expectations. Our stellar team will meet and exceed your expectations. That's why we were named Mercedes Best of the Best, placing us in the top 10% of all Mercedes dealers nationwide.
Find out how you can lease a new Mercedes for unbelievably low monthly payments. Details at mbzvalencia.com.
Did you know you can attend College of the Canyons tuition free? Yeah. Canyons Promise provides incoming first-time college students the opportunity to attend College of the Canyons tuition free for their first 2 years. And you don't even have to be a recent high school graduate to take advantage of the opportunity. Anyone who's a first-time college student and meets the Canyons Promise criteria can sign up. Visit canyons.edu/promise for full details and to get signed up before June 15th. canyons.edu/promise.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the Law Office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the Law Office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
With efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19, the coronavirus, grocery stores and big box stores around the Santa Clarita Valley and in the city of Los Angeles are changing their store hours. The changes in store hours are to help them restock their products while cleaning and sanitizing their stores to prevent the spread of the virus. The following stores have changed their hours accordingly. For seniors only, Smart & Final will be opening 30 minutes early at 7:30 a.m. for customers 65 years and older and those with disabilities. Their stores will be open to all other customers beginning at 8 a.m. Whole Foods will now be closing at 9 p.m. starting Wednesday. Seniors have 1 hour before opening from 7 to 8 a.m. to do their shopping. All Vallarta supermarket locations will be open from 7 to 8 a.m. for those 65 years older, pregnant women, and those with disabilities. And Vons and Albertsons grocery stores have announced their senior hours will be Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Walmart stores that are normally open 24 hours will now be open from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. until further notice. Stores that are not normally open 24 hours will maintain their normal operating hours. Albertsons stores are opening 1 hour later and closing 1 hour earlier. Sam's Club is open Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. until further notice. Whole Foods is maintaining their normal store hours, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. However, hours are subject to change in the near future. Vallarta grocery store hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Plans for senior-only hours are in the works and will be updated soon. Costco is maintaining their current store hours, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Ralph stores have modified their hours and are now open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Trader Joe's announced all stores will be open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. until further notice. No senior-only hours have been announced yet. Vons grocery stores have announced their store hours are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Select products will now be sold in limited quantities to manage the high demand. This is a fluid situation, and we will continue to do our best to provide you with the latest and most accurate information. For more, go to KHTS Radio on Facebook, tune into 98.1 FM and AM 1220, or visit hometownstation.com.
Hometown, your hometown station.
Welcome. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Hey, you didn't use your button. I was waiting for the "and," but I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just heard it right there.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I guess you turned your button off, just like you turned off Facebook Live.
I can probably impersonate the button and 98.1 FM.
But can you impersonate Facebook Live? Because I don't see it.
Yeah, we are going through some difficulties right now, but we are fixing that up right now.
So we have a very special episode today on the Ask Brien radio show, AskBrien.com. We don't have any co-hosts today. We're doing special episode, special on the coronavirus and how that affects your business. While I am an attorney, I'm not providing any legal advice, but I am trying to answer questions that people have requested from the audience. So the next question we have is a very simple question, and that is, what about our taxes? Do we still need to pay by April 15th? Well, for the coronavirus and for the state of emergency, it's an interesting question because we have a conflicting law. So the deadline to file your state and federal returns are normally April 15th. The state of California, based on the state of emergency Governor Newsom has passed, allows a 60-day extension, that would be June 15th, to file your taxes and to pay your taxes. That's what the rule is in California. The IRS, based on the state of emergency passed by our president, has a 90-day extension through July 15th. So this prevents a quandary for most filers. Two issues. One is, while your federal return is not technically due until July 15th, the fact that your state return is currently due on June 15th presents a problem. Because when you file your state return, you are supposed to include a copy of your federal return. If you have not prepared your federal return because you want to file it on July 15th, there's a problem. I believe that the state of California will adjust this at some point, but as of right now, I would tell you that while the federal government may be allowing you the full 90 days, I think you would have to file a copy. You would have to have your federal return completed and a file with the state of California unless they change their rules on or before June 15th. You can maybe hold off and file your federal return later on through another 30 days, but the fact of the matter is you're going to have your federal return prepared. So that's the answer to that question. What about our taxes? Do we still have to pay by April 15th? The other issue is the federal government has said they're going to waive penalties and interest by filing, as long as you file it by July 15th. That does not apply to the state, so that's another question, and it applies whether or not you're talking about the federal return or the state return. Now, what was your next question, Patty? You had a question you asked.
Yes, I do. So my next question is, my boss asked me to go somewhere or do something that might expose me to the virus. Can I refuse that?
Again, that's another. These are all novel concepts here because no one has ever really dealt with that.
Right.
So when you work for an employer, you are required to follow the employer's instructions. Okay, you are working for them. Not that you're a slave, but you are required to follow their instructions. However, if common sense says that now, let me ask you a question. Are you talking about going to somebody that you know for a fact has coronavirus, or how do you know that the person you're going to see has coronavirus, or is it just that you just don't want to go?
I would say, let's just say it's like in a high-risk area that potentially could have coronavirus, I would say.
And why do you determine that as high risk?
Considering, like, let's say we go into a place that has had some confirmed cases, but they're not there right now. They're self-quarantined, but they were, let's say, like a business that had it. It's still open, but the person that had it is gone out of the picture. I would say that, like, as a high risk.
Well, I mean, so there are precautions everyone can take, right?
Right.
By using Purell and washing their hands and things like that, whatever. If nobody's presently there has it that you know, I think I'd probably lean more towards the employer. But I also think that if you told your employer that you don't want to go for that reason, I think if that was the only reason and you had been a good employee, I think it'd be tough if you were terminated. However, there are no protections for people currently. So, for instance, employment law provides provisions if you are based on sexual orientation or skin color or things of that nature, disabilities. Those are all covered. Okay, this is not, I believe, on the Title Act. I'm not sure that it would be covered that you don't want to go and follow the boss's instructions to go see somebody sick. I think if you knew that they were sick, or we knew that they were sick, there might be a better chance for you. But if they were to terminate you for that, it would be very difficult. I'm not saying that you can't win, but it would be much more difficult. I think also there's, again, this is new law. Nobody has ever determined it. There's no rule on the law books that says that you can do what you want. And as I said, we still live in a society where the employer has more rights than the employee, and you are supposed to follow the employer's responsibilities. However, a judge would make that decision, and/or a jury would make that decision whether or not you would do that. But and there are many, many other issues to determine whether or not how many years you work there, et cetera, that this specific fact pattern hypothetical that you're giving is not good enough for. And so I would say if you knew that they had it and you didn't want to go, I think I probably would understand that concept. If they had it before and no cases now, and you don't want to go, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for you, and you may want to look into what other job opportunities you have where maybe you don't have to deal with that situation, or sit down with the boss, explain your tactics, and ask whether or not somebody else could do that, and you can do some other thing because you don't feel comfortable.
Right. Sounds good.
So, let's see. There was another question for me. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Is the Facebook Live working yet?
Yeah, Facebook Live is on.
Okay, so can you see if there are any... anyone that wants to watch us on Facebook Live, you can watch us, and you can ask a question. So if you have a question, just go to KHTS, which is Hometown Station, or KHTS Radio on Facebook Live. You can look at the video for Ask Brien, and you can ask a question, and we'll try to answer that question before our show is over in the next 22 minutes. Now, let's see. The next question we have is... Well...
Oh, for me, I thought you had...
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Apologies. All right, so this one's another hypothetical for you. Our business shut down and we were furloughed, but my boss keeps asking me to check emails and stay in touch. Do I still get paid for that?
Well, okay, define furloughed, because furlough typically means you've been laid off temporarily for a period of time, right?
Right.
So if you are not working, then you don't have any obligations, okay?
Right.
If you are working, then you still have those obligations. It sounds to me like you're not furloughed 100%. You can be furloughed, you can not be you can work from home, correct?
Yeah.
So I would think if the boss is giving you instructions to do work and you're paid on an hourly basis, I think you can track time and you should get paid for that. If you're not working, that's one thing. But in this case, you actually are working, and so therefore, you should be.
Right.
Now, the other question that has been coming up recently is, typically, if somebody is laid off or terminated, it usually takes 1 week before you can obtain unemployment insurance. However, under the current guidelines, they are now waiving the 1 week requirement so you can get paid right away. But it's still going to take a little while. You still have to go down to the unemployment office. You still have to file a claim. You might be able to file the claim online. Things have changed. But even if you file your claim, it's still going to take a little time to get into the system and for them to issue you a check. So you are going to have to be very tight until you get your first check if you're doing unemployment. The next question is, how long is this going to last? Everyone is saying it could be March 27th, could be April 15th, could be 60 days, 90 days. Nobody knows how long some people are going to be off. The economy has taken quite a hit, and until we get everything back on track, we don't know how long it's going to be. But you can technically collect unemployment insurance if you are laid off or furloughed under these circumstances, and they are making it a little bit easier for you.
Right.
Now, another question we had was, somebody said, well, what if I get sick, okay? What if I get sick, the coronavirus at work?
Yeah.
Okay? Well, again, this is a very new area because it's never been dealt with, but you might be able to apply for workers' compensation because it was during the work time. But in order to get workers' comp, they typically are dealing with injuries. So whether or not that would apply to you or not, they haven't made any rulings or determinations. We don't know how it is. But the state of California is saying that that's an applicable way that you can go ahead and collect. You can actually go and file a workers' comp claim. So that's another way that you can do it. Now, the other way is disability insurance. Now, there's a state disability insurance that you pay for if you are an employee, get your W-2. As an employee, you are paying into a system just like the unemployment system for disability. So you might be able to apply for disability insurance as well through the disability. Also, not a lot of people, but many people do have a disability policy. And so the way it works on a disability policy, just like we talked earlier about the FHA versus the private lender, that's also a contract. So if you have a disability policy through Travelers or any of the big insurance carriers that have insurance policies out there for disability, Aflac has one as well, I believe, that's based on your contractual terms. Whether or not they're going to adjust the contractual terms or not, I think it's going to be very unlikely in these circumstances, and the reason why it's going to be less likely in these circumstances is at this point in time, the insurance company, that's a private company, they don't get any government money or aid or whatever, and they're going to want to be in a situation where they want to limit the amount of income and policies that they have to pay out for. If they do have to start paying out for policies and stuff, it's going to affect their bottom line. And at the same time when they're dealing with a lot of other issues, because insurance companies are going to be in a very difficult situation the longer this goes on. You may have short-term disability that they will have to cover. They may have to cover long-term disability if people are out for longer periods of time. They may have to deal with business interruption insurance policies. So there's a lot of issues out there. And so the insurance companies typically like to hold off on paying as little money as possible under the circumstances. They may not have a choice, but they like to do that. So anyone that has a long-term or short-term disability policy gets sick with the coronavirus should be looking into that aspect. But that's if they get sick. That's not if they get furloughed or laid off. Disability is not the same as unemployment. Unemployment is if you're terminated or laid off for this period of time. That is not the same as disability. Disability is you actually have an illness, again, and the illness might be the coronavirus, especially depending on the circumstances where you are. You might end up in a hospital, etc. We don't know what's going on. And so for that reason, okay, the reality is that you may be dealing with a specific insurance company, and you may or may not be able to get coverage right away. Hopefully you can. Long term, if you have a policy and that policy is effective, and for some reason they decide not to pay it, which they really don't usually have a basis for,
right,
you can actually pursue a bad faith claim, which is a very big case, and the insurance companies don't want to deal with that. But the reality is you have to understand that the insurance industry is going to be really, really under the gun right now, because there are a lot of companies out there that have what's called business interruption insurance, basically in an event like a hurricane or something like this where they've lost a lot of money, or maybe their building burnt down, they can't operate, okay? And those people are going to be going to the insurance companies and asking for the business interruption if they have that policy to collect. That's going to cause the insurance companies to have to spend a lot of money potentially, and so that could become a problem. Now, right now, we're very early stages. Right now, if everything gets done quickly, there'll be a lot less. But if it goes on further, there is that possibility. And if you have an insurance company that doesn't have a lot of money, that also can be an issue. What if the insurance company anticipated, 1 in 1,000 times they'd have to do this, and now because everything is crashing, they have 10,000 people out of 10,000.
Right.
They can't afford it. Insurance is based on actuary, which is based on statistics. So they statistically determine how many payouts they're going to have, and then they charge enough to make a premium and a profit. But there's no guarantee in these circumstances here that they're going to have enough money to protect themselves. So again, this would be like if 1,000 people have it, they may say, okay, we anticipate having to pay out the claims on 10 of them, and so our premiums may cover with our profit 80. You get to 100 or 120, they're going to have financial issues. They get to 200, they could be in financial trouble based on the size and balance sheet of that insurance company, which is what I always tell people, is be very, very careful when you're dealing with insurance, that you, A, understand the policy, B, make sure that it's specifically in the policy, and 3, that the carrier is a big enough carrier that if anything were to happen, they'll have the resources to come in and take care of it.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
You know what? That did answer my question, Brian. That did. That was very.
I was trying not to answer your question. Didn't work. I'll have to try.
You have to try harder there, Mister. We're also gonna have to. We're gonna have to take a break right now, too, Brian.
A break?
Yes, sir.
You only asked me one question.
Hey, you know what? Time flies when you're answering helpful questions.
That or I talk too much. But anyway, thank you very much, and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
The Oasis treatment at the Ivy Day Spa begins with a gentle exfoliation, then rinsed away in warm showers. You're painted with a soothing aloe vera, shea butter, and coconut oil body mask. Then travel through the warm Hydro Cave chambers. The relaxation chamber completes your Oasis body moisturizing treatment with a pH balancing mist and a warm cup of tea. Feel refreshed, hydrated, and relaxed. Pamper yourself. The Ivy Day Spa, Town Center Drive.
This is Bradley Gross from Santa Clarita Grocery. Santa Clarita Grocery serves fresh groceries to families, individuals, and those experiencing homelessness. At Santa Clarita Grocery, out of every dollar donated, a full 99 cents goes directly to the needs being addressed. As an all-volunteer-led organization, we operate on a 1% overhead, receiving no government funding for our operations in the community, resulting in us being one of the most efficient charities in the Santa Clarita Valley. If you're looking to support the good for our community, please consider partnering with us by donating to Santa Clarita Grocery. What is donated is specifically kept in the Santa Clarita Valley, helping over 3,000 families, including 5 other community charities. Please visit our website, santaclaritagrocery.org, or visit us on social media or call us at 425-7575. That's 425-7575.
It's like no other station I've ever listened to. It's great.
Your hometown station.
Welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show. I don't know why you say it like that. AskBrien.com. And we're answering business questions relating to the coronavirus. Now, as I said earlier, while I am a lawyer, these are business questions and business responses. I'm not providing any legal advice. If you need to speak to an attorney, please contact your attorney. However, we've been going through the show and answering questions relating to people's questions specifically for the coronavirus. It's a special show today. What was the next question we had? Mr. Patty!
Yeah. Well, Mr. Brien, Our next question is, would my company be liable if an employee contracts coronavirus at work?
Well, again, all these are new novice questions. There's a lot of issues here, right?
Right.
So first of all, we need to understand, how did they contact it? So it wasn't that, somebody had it, they knew about it, they told the boss, hey, I got it, I'm coming to work, and I'm going to be sitting right next to Patty, and by the way, every once in a while I'll cough every 10 seconds, or was it, so the circumstances can matter, right?
Yeah.
Knowledge. What did we know about the situation? Was it a situation where we knew what was going on? Also, I think that one of the reasons why we're cleaning everything down is, one reason is to protect everybody, but the other reason is people are getting this coronavirus, and if you can go ahead and have a system whereby you're doing a deep cleaning so that it's less likely that somebody could get it, I think that's going to increase the risk. There are no cases on this because nothing has ever happened like this before in our history. So that's obviously another question, another issue. The reality is, you have to do what you can to provide a safe environment for your employees, right? But think about it. If you have a coal mine, people go down to the coal mine, and the coal mine, breaks and locks people in for a day, right? That's an example of situation. Or workplace violence. Unfortunately, someone comes into your workplace and starts shooting up the place, right?
Right.
So what those type of cases show us is, what precautions, what safety systems have we put in place? Okay, 1, 2. I do believe that workers' comp would if you have an injury during work, okay, that is covered by workers' comp. Since they're saying that workers' comp is supposed to be covering this, I think that the way to do it would be to use workers' comp, because workers' comp takes the employer liability out to a certain extent, not 100%, but it does take you out because of the workplace injury.
Yeah.
And I think you'd have to also look at the knowledge of the people that knew what was going on and what was happening and what steps they took to do this. Obviously, if I go in, I go, hey, Patty, I got coronavirus, and you go, cool, go in that group over there with 50 people because we're hanging out. You have to use common sense.
Right,
is what I'm saying. Use common sense. Try to do everything you can to protect yourself. Obviously, we talked earlier about screening people by coming in. That's certainly a step that would be beneficial to people, because and the other thing is, some people are asymptomatic, right? So if you're asymptomatic, that means you have no symptoms. You're not going to have the high fever. You're not going to be coughing, and you may have it. And the person may say, well, the only place I've been is work and my house, and I've never seen anyone else, so I think I got it there. Then you have to determine how they got it, where they got it. All right?
Right.
So that would be an issue. Anything else relating to that one?
Yeah. In fact, I do have something. It's another employee-related one. Do I need to pay an employee who misses work due to being quarantined?
So the current law was just passed last night and signed by the president. So that's a federal issue, okay? And right now, I believe that they are saying, because in our history, sick time has never been required. Almost every major employer has sick time, meaning that you will get paid if you're sick to take time off.
Yeah.
But it is not a legal requirement currently in the country. I believe that the new recent bill that was passed by Congress and signed yesterday, which I have not been able to read yet, does provide sick leave for people in these situations. So I do believe that it is now currently covered and is part of the stimulus package that was just passed by Congress. But legally, before this, the rule was no. You're not protected under, you don't have to pay it unless you have a policy that offers it. Now, if you have a policy that offers it, obviously you have to follow your own guidelines. Again, that's kind of like the government and the contract that we talk about. Everything we're talking about is private government. So earlier we talked about mortgages, right? And in a mortgage situation, we were discussing government can make their own rules for their own stuff, but a private lender can't. Well, it's the same thing for sick time. There is no legal requirement to offer sick time up until this recent bill that was passed yesterday, which I believe provides something for people that get sick related to the coronavirus if they take off sick time. that they can get paid.
Right.
And the next question is who's going to pay for it and how are they going to pay for it?
Yeah.
And I think that is still actually being decided. I think right now there's a whole bunch of bills, and Trump is trying to pass some bills relating to this issue.
All right.
And so, did you have another question?
I have one last question. How can I communicate?
Only on Tuesdays. Oh,
yes, sir. How can I communicate my global health emergency policy as an employer?
well, I think that's a very, very important factor. Whatever business you have, okay? I mean, obviously, if you have 2 people in your shop and it's very small, I get that. But
Yeah.
I would be disclosing and putting out a notice to everybody, okay?
Right.
I would put out a notice to everybody, you know, what's going on, what's happening, and what our policy is. That can be used down the road if anything happens to the company, if you do get sued, that you did have a policy in place. I think every business, whether one person to 50, should have a policy in place saying this is what our policy is relating to the coronavirus. I think that's kind of like under the full disclosure transparency issue, and I would think that you should do that.
Oh, fantastic, Peter. Well, we're about to go out of here right now, Peter. It's just about the end of the show.
Well, thank you very much, and everyone stay safe. Social distancing has value. It'll lower the risk to the rest of the country, so please practice social distancing. Thank you very much. Over and out. AskBrien.com. 1220 and 98.1 FM.